The first time Billy heard it, he thought it was his imagination. It was a faint scratching sound, barely audible over the hum of his nightlight. He sat up in bed, his small room bathed in the soft glow of his dinosaur lamp. He strained his ears, but the noise had stopped. Shrugging, he lay back down, clutching his teddy bear, and fell asleep. The second time, he was sure he heard it. The scratching was more persistent, like nails on wood. He sat up again, heart pounding in his chest. His eyes darted around the room, landing on the dark gap under his bed. He considered calling for his parents, but hesitated, not wanting to seem like a scared little kid. He took a deep breath and peered over the edge of his bed. "Hello," he whispered into the darkness. There was no response, just silence. Billy sighed and lay back down, determined to ignore it. But sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, his dreams were filled with shadowy figures and distant scratching. The next morning at breakfast, Billy decided to tell his parents. "Mom, Dad, I heard something under my bed last night." His mother smiled sympathetically. "It's just your imagination, sweetheart. There's nothing under your bed." His father chuckled. "Maybe it's the monster that eats little boys who don't finish their vegetables." Billy scowled, but he cleaned his plate. That night, as he got ready for bed, he made sure to check under the bed. There was nothing there, just dust and an old toy car he had forgotten about. He crawled into bed, trying to convince himself that his parents were right. But the scratching came back, louder and more insistent than before. Billy sat up, gripping his teddy bear tightly. "Who's there?" he whispered. This time, there was a response. A low, raspy voice whispered back, "I'm hungry." Billy's blood ran cold. He wanted to scream for his parents, but fear kept him silent. The voice continued, "I'm so hungry, Billy." "What do you want?" Billy managed to choke out. "I want you," the voice hissed. Billy scrambled out of bed and ran to his parents' room. He burst through the door, tears streaming down his face. "There's something under my bed," he cried. His father groaned and sat up. "Billy, it's the middle of the night." "But there's something there." Billy insisted. His mother got out of bed and wrapped her arms around him. "Okay, sweetheart. Let's go see." They walked back to Billy's room together, his father grumbling the whole way. When they reached the room, his mother turned on the light and knelt down to look under the bed. "See, there's nothing here." Billy looked too, but he couldn't see anything. The darkness seemed deeper than usual, and the scratching had stopped. "But I heard it," he said, his voice trembling. His father sighed. "Billy, there's nothing under your bed. Now go back to sleep." Billy climbed back into bed, feeling more alone than ever. His parents left the room, and he lay there, staring at the ceiling. The scratching started again, louder and more frantic. Billy covered his ears, trying to block it out, but it was no use. The voice came back, more insistent. "Billy, I'm hungry. Let me out." Billy didn't know what to do. He couldn't call for his parents again, they wouldn't believe him. He had to deal with this on his own. He took a deep breath and leaned over the edge of the bed. "What do you want?" The voice was a harsh whisper. "Let me out, Billy. I'm so hungry." "Why are you under my bed?" Billy asked. "I was put here a long time ago," the voice replied. "I need to eat to survive." Billy swallowed hard. "What do you eat?" "Little boys like you," the voice said, and Billy felt a chill run down his spine. "I won't let you eat me," Billy said, trying to sound brave. The voice laughed, a low, sinister sound. "We'll see about that." Billy lay back down, pulling the covers over his head. He stayed awake all night, listening to the scratching and the voice. When morning finally came, he was exhausted but relieved. The daylight seemed to chase away the darkness, and the voice was silent. He spent the day trying to think of a way to get rid of the monster. He couldn't tell his parents again, they wouldn't believe him. He needed to find someone who would. After school, he went to the library and checked out a book about monsters. He read it cover to cover, hoping to find something that would help. The book mentioned that some monsters could be banished with light. Billy decided to try it. That night, he took his flashlight to bed with him. When the scratching started, he turned on the flashlight and shone it under the bed. The scratching stopped, and he heard a low growl. The voice came back, angrier than before. "You can't keep me away forever, Billy. I'm still hungry." Billy kept the flashlight on, but he could feel his resolve weakening. He didn't know how long he could keep this up. The next day, he was too tired to go to school. He stayed home, trying to come up with a new plan. He remembered a story his grandmother had told him about a talisman that could protect against evil spirits. She had given him a small, silver pendant before she died, telling him it would keep him safe. Billy dug through his drawer and found the pendant. He put it on, hoping it would protect him. That night, the scratching started again. Billy held the pendant tightly and whispered, "Go away. You can't have me." The voice snarled, "I'll find a way, Billy. I'm so hungry." Billy didn't know how much longer he could keep this up. He needed help, but he didn't know who to turn to. Then he remembered his friend, Tommy. Tommy's dad was a priest. Maybe he could help. The next day, Billy went to Tommy's house and told him everything. Tommy listened, wide-eyed. "I'll talk to my dad," he said. Tommy's dad, Father McGinty, was a kind man with a gentle smile. He listened to Billy's story and nodded thoughtfully. "I believe you, Billy," he said. "Sometimes, there are things we can't explain. I'll come over tonight and see what I can do." That night, Father McGinty came to Billy's house. He brought a small vial of holy water and a book of prayers. He sat with Billy in his room, waiting for the scratching to start. When it did, Father McGinty sprinkled the holy water under the bed and recited a prayer. The scratching stopped, and there was a loud, angry howl. The voice came back, filled with rage. "You can't get rid of me that easily." Father McGinty didn't waver. He continued to pray, and the air in the room seemed to grow lighter. The voice screamed in anger, but it grew fainter and fainter until it finally disappeared. Billy felt a sense of relief wash over him. He looked at Father McGinty, who smiled and patted his shoulder. "You're safe now, Billy. The monster is gone." Billy's parents were skeptical, but they could see the change in their son. He slept soundly that night for the first time in weeks. The next morning, he felt like a new person. The darkness had lifted, and the fear was gone. He thanked Father McGinty and Tommy, grateful for their help. He knew he would never forget the terror he had faced, but he also knew he was stronger for having faced it. The monster under the bed was gone, but Billy had learned a valuable lesson. He had learned that sometimes, the real monsters are the fears we keep hidden inside, and the true power lies in facing them head on.